When you retire, never give these things to your children. Have you ever considered that the choices you make in retirement could shape not only your future but also the very foundation of your children's lives? You've spent decades providing, nurturing, and guiding, but now, as you step into this new chapter, you might unknowingly be making decisions that jeopardize your peace of mind and hinder your children's independence. Could your love and support actually be holding them back? Retirement isn't just about slowing down, it's about reshaping your role in a way that strengthens both you and your family. And sometimes, what you don't give your children is just as important as what you do. In today's video, inspired by Buddhist wisdom, we'll uncover 8 critical things you should never give your children in retirement. These are the choices that silently drain your energy, compromise your security, and create dependence instead of resilience. But by understanding them, you can create healthier family ties, lasting peace, and a stronger sense of self. If you want to protect your independence while guiding your children toward true self-sufficiency, stay with us until the end. These insights will not only lighten your emotional and financial burdens but also empower your children to grow into stronger, wiser individuals. At Mindful Sphere, we bring you life-changing wisdom to help you navigate personal and spiritual growth. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share this video with those who need to hear it. Now, let's dive in. 1. Unconditional approval. Confucius once said, "He who merely flatters his child does not truly love him." In ancient China, a young prince was raised with endless praise and indulgence, his father believing that love meant shielding him from all hardship. But when the king passed, the prince, never having faced discipline or correction, ruled with reckless arrogance. His inability to accept criticism led to the downfall of the dynasty. True love is not blind approval, it is the wisdom to guide, the courage to correct, and the strength to say no when necessary. A child raised without challenge is a child unprepared for life. I once knew a woman named Martha. She was a dear friend, the kind of person whose presence felt like a warm fire on a cold night. But there was one thing about Martha: she never said no to her son Daniel. Yet the moment he was born, she adored him with a love that had no boundaries. If he wanted candy before dinner, she gave it. If he refused to do his homework, she told the teacher he had been too tired. As he grew, so did his demands. A new bike? Of course. A car at 16? Naturally. College tuition, despite his failing grades? She paid every dime. "You have to support your children," she'd say to me. "Otherwise, what kind of parent are you?" I had my doubts. Not because she loved her son, I knew she did, but because she mistook approval for love. She feared his disappointment more than she feared what the world might do to him if he never learned limits. Years passed, and I saw less of Daniel. The last time I truly spoke to him, he was in his early 20s. He had just quit his 3rd job in 6 months. "They didn't respect me," he scoffed. "The manager wanted me to show up on time every day. Can you believe that?" I believed it all right. But Martha? She hugged him and said, "It's their loss, sweetheart." Then one day, Martha called me in tears. Daniel had asked for a loan, a large one, and she had finally, for the first time in his life, said no. She was retired, living on a fixed income, and couldn't afford to help him anymore. "He told me I was a terrible mother," she sobbed, "that I never really loved him, and then he hung up." I listened, my heart heavy. The years of indulgence had built a fragile bridge between them, one that collapsed the moment she stopped saying yes. She had spent a lifetime teaching him that love meant approval, and now that approval was gone, he mistook it for abandonment. A few months later, Daniel reached out to her again, not to apologize, but to ask for more money. By then he had fallen into debt, struggling to manage even the simplest responsibilities. When she refused, he disappeared from her life once more. Maratha never stopped loving her son, but love, on its own, wasn't enough to prepare him for life. He had grown up believing that the world would treat him as gently as his mother had, that he would always be shielded from the consequences of his actions. But life does not grant us approval for simply existing. It tests us, challenges us, forces us to grow, and if no one ever tells us no, we never learn how to stand on our own. Now, I ask you, have you seen this happen in your own life? A friend, a relative, maybe even yourself? Do you believe that true love must include discipline? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your wisdom on this. 2. Your home. Lao Tzu once said, "To hold you must first open your hand, to keep you must first let go." But wisdom also teaches us what not to let go of too soon. In ancient Rome, an elderly senator gifted his estate to his sons while he was still alive, believing it would secure his family's future. Instead, they squandered their inheritance, and he was left begging for shelter in the very home he had built. A home is not just a place. It is protection, security, and dignity. Surrender it too soon, and you may find yourself with nowhere to stand when you need it most. When I bought my home 50 years ago, it wasn't just a house. It was a promise. A promise that my family would always have a place to gather, a roof to shield us from life's storms, and walls that carried our laughter, our tears, and our memories. I raised my children in that house. I watched them take their first steps on the wooden floors, their laughter echoing through the hallways, and as they grew, they dreamed of having homes of their own. Then came my son David. "Mom, why don't you transfer the house to me now?" he asked one day. "It'll make things easier later, and I can take care of it for you." I hesitated. I wasn't naive. I had seen others do the same, handing over their homes in the name of trust, only to find themselves unwelcome guests in their own lives. But this was my son. He loved me. So I signed the papers. At first nothing changed. I still cooked in my kitchen, still rocked in my favorite chair by the window. But little by little, the house stopped feeling like mine. David's wife began making changes, new locks, new rules, new conversations that no longer included me. I'd hear whispers about how it might be time for Mom to downsize, or maybe assisted living would be better. I wasn't just losing my home, I was losing my place in my own family. Then came the day I'll never forget. I had gone out for groceries. When I returned, my key didn't fit the lock. I knocked. David answered with a tense look. "Mom, we need to talk." He explained, gently but firmly, that his growing family needed more space, that I would be more comfortable elsewhere, that he had already found a place for me, a senior apartment across town. My hands trembled. This was my home, my life. And now, with a signature I had given freely, I had no say in it. I packed my things, leaving behind a lifetime of memories trapped within walls I no longer owned. The apartment was small, quiet. The walls didn't carry my past. The floors didn't know my children's steps. I had given away my independence, thinking I was securing my future. Instead, I had given away my place in my own story. So to those listening, think before you give away the roof over your head. A home is more than a building. It's your foundation, your security, your dignity. Keep it until you are truly ready. Tell me, have you ever seen someone lose their home too soon? Or maybe you've felt pressure to make choices you weren't ready for. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your wisdom. 3. Immediate solutions. Encourage independence instead. Buddha once said, "No one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must walk the path." In ancient India, a devoted father watched his son struggle to build a fire. Each time the boy failed, he rushed to help, but a wise elder stopped him, saying, "If you always strike the flint for him, he will never learn to create his own warmth." True wisdom lies not in solving problems for others, but in teaching them how to overcome obstacles on their own. A life without struggle is a life without strength, and a child always rescued is a child never truly prepared. I once knew a young man named Jacob, though, in truth, I knew him before he ever knew himself. You see, I was there when he took his first breath, when he scraped his knees learning to ride a bike, when he cried over lost toys and broken friendships. And through it all, I did what any loving parent would do. I helped. When he forgot his lunch at school, I rushed to bring it. When he failed his first math test, I stayed up all night helping him understand. When he lost his first job interview, I told him it wasn't his fault, that the world was unfair, that I would always be there to catch him when he fell, and I was. But the thing about always catching someone is that they stop learning how to stand. Jacob grew into a man. But a man unaccustomed to struggle is a man unprepared for life. He flitted from job to job, always blaming the boss, the coworkers, the economy. Each time he failed, I reached into my pocket, into my time, into my energy, giving him money, connections, encouragement. Then came the day he knocked on my door, desperate once more. He had lost another job, his rent was due, and he needed help. "Just one last time, Dad," he said. "I promise." I stared at him, my heart aching. I had built a bridge for him but never taught him to cross it alone. That night, I sat by my window, watching the stars, thinking about the generations before me. My own father, he had loved me too, but his love had been different. When I failed, he didn't rush in to save me. Instead, he gave me the space to struggle, to learn, to grow, and because of that I had become a man who could stand on his own feet. I had robbed Jacob of that gift. The next morning, when he asked for my help again, I did something I had never done before. I said no. His eyes widened. His voice shook. "But Dad, what am I supposed to do?" I took his hands in mine and said, "You will figure it out, and when you do, you will know you are truly a man." It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but sometimes true love is not in the giving, but in the withholding. It took time, but Jacob did learn. He found work, paid his rent, and for the first time stood on his own 2 feet. And the day he came back, not to ask for help, but to thank me, I knew that I had finally given him something far greater than money. So tell me, have you ever found yourself giving too much, too often? Have you ever struggled to let go, to watch your loved ones face the fire on their own? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your wisdom. 4. Your identity. Stay true to yourself. The Bhagavad Gita teaches you have the right to work, but never to the fruit of work. A mother in ancient India once devoted her entire life to raising her children, forsaking her own joys. When they grew up and left, she found herself lost, with no identity beyond being their mother. She approached a wise sage, asking, "Who am I now?" He replied, "A river does not stop flowing when it nourishes the trees along its banks. You are more than the role you played. Your journey must continue." Parenting is an honor, but life must hold meaning beyond it. There was a time when I was more than just mom. Before my children, before the long nights of rocking babies to sleep, before school lunches and scraped knees, before homework and bedtime stories, I was a woman named Margaret. Margaret loved to paint. She used to spend hours with a brush in her hand, bringing life to blank canvases. She had dreams, ones that weren't written in grocery lists or school schedules. She wanted to travel, to see the world beyond the 4 walls of her home. And then came motherhood. It was beautiful, exhausting, consuming. I loved my children more than words can express. But somewhere along the way, Margaret faded. She became mom and nothing more. For years I told myself that was enough. My children needed me. Their laughter filled the spaces where my dreams used to live. My paintbrushes gathered dust. My books sat unread. Every piece of me was given to them. Then one day they were gone. Off to college, off to build their own families, off to live lives I had spent years preparing them for. And I stood in the middle of a quiet house, staring at the woman in the mirror, a woman I no longer recognized. Woe was she without them. What did she love? What did she dream of? I tried to fill the silence with busy hands, folding laundry that wasn't mine, cooking meals for one, checking my phone in the hopes that someone, anyone, needed me. But the truth settled in my bones like an ache. I had spent so much time building their lives that I had forgotten to build my own. One evening I found an old painting of mine hidden in the attic. The colors had faded, but the strokes were still there, remnants of a woman who once had a world outside of motherhood. My fingers traced the canvas, and for the first time in years, I felt something stir inside me. So I picked up a paintbrush again. At first it felt foreign, almost foolish, but with every stroke I remembered I was still Margaret, not just mom, not just someone waiting for a phone call. I was still a woman with passions, with dreams, with a life worth living. My children visit now, and they see the change. They see paintings on the walls, books on the table, a suitcase half packed for a trip I always wanted to take. And they smile. Not because they need me, but because they see that I have finally remembered how to need myself. To those listening, don't wait until the house is empty to remember who you are. You are more than the roles you play. Tell me, have you ever lost yourself in the service of others? What passions have you set aside? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. 5. Financial control. Protect your security. Seneca, the great Roman philosopher, once said, "Wealth is the slave of a wise man, but the master of a fool." There is an old story of a wealthy merchant who, in his twilight years, handed over his fortune to his son, believing it would secure his care in old age. But the son, reckless and impatient, squandered it all, leaving his father penniless and abandoned. The lesson? Control over one's wealth is control over one's dignity. Money does not just buy comfort, it protects autonomy. To surrender financial control too soon is to risk losing not just security, but respect. I have always believed that trust is the foundation of family, but trust, I've learned, must be paired with wisdom, or it can cost you everything. My husband and I worked hard for what we had. We weren't rich, but we were stable. We saved diligently, built a modest retirement fund, and paid off our home. We had always planned for the future, but we never planned for what love could blind us to. Our son, Peter, was our pride and joy, smart, ambitious, full of ideas. But he struggled to manage money. He borrowed often, first for college, then a car, then a business venture that never quite took off. Each time we helped. That's what parents do, right? Then, one day he sat us down. "Mom, Dad," he said, "why don't you let me manage your finances? It'll be easier. I can take care of bills, investments, everything. You shouldn't have to worry about it at your age." It sounded reasonable. We trusted him. So we signed over access to our accounts, believing it would make life simpler. At first things seemed fine. But then little things changed. A bill was late. A check bounced. When I asked, Peter always had an explanation. A bank error, a mix-up, a temporary issue. One afternoon, I stopped by the bank to withdraw some cash. The teller gave me a strange look. "Mrs. Carter," she said hesitantly, "your account is nearly empty." My heart nearly stopped. I demanded to see the records. Transaction after transaction, money withdrawn, investments cashed out. The son we had trusted had drained almost everything. When I confronted him, he broke down. "I didn't mean to," he sobbed. "I was in over my head. I thought I could fix it before you noticed, but it was too late. Our security, our stability, gone. We had to sell our home, move into a smaller place. Every safety net we had built for ourselves had vanished, with a few signatures and a misplaced trust." I don't tell you this story for sympathy. I tell it as a warning. Because I know I'm not the only one who thought my child would never do that. But love can cloud judgment. And once you give up control of your money, you also give up control of your choices. So, to those listening, keep your finances in your own hands. Seek professional advice, make careful plans, but never, never surrender full control. Your money is not just numbers in a bank, it is your independence. Have you ever known someone who lost their financial security because they trusted too much? Have you felt pressure to hand over control of your own resources? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your wisdom. 6. Your emotional energy. Set healthy boundaries. The Buddha once taught, you yourself, as much as anybody in the entire universe, deserve your love and affection. In ancient Japan, a devoted mother carried the worries of her children like stones in a basket. She took their burdens upon herself, shielding them from every hardship. But with each passing year, the weight grew heavier, her back more bent, her spirit more weary. One day an old monk told her, "If you do not set down the basket, who will carry you when you fall?" To give endlessly without limits is not love. It is sacrifice without wisdom. A drained heart can give no warmth. I spent most of my life carrying my children's worries as if they were my own. And I did it gladly, because isn't that what a mother does? My daughter Emily struggled in her marriage. Every time she called, I dropped everything to listen, to soothe, to offer advice. When she cried, I cried. When she was angry, I felt her rage in my bones. My son Michael had trouble keeping a job. Each time he failed, I felt his shame as if it were my own. I sent him money, helped him search for new work, reassured him that he wasn't a failure. But the years passed, and I noticed something. They were still struggling, but I was the one growing weaker. I lost sleep worrying about them. My own friendships faded because I spent all my time answering their calls. My body ached, not from age but from the invisible weight of their problems pressing down on me. Then one evening I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the cold cup of tea in front of me. My phone rang. It was Emily. I knew she needed me again. But for the first time, I didn't answer right away. Instead, I looked in the mirror and saw a woman who had spent a lifetime giving, but never reserving anything for herself. The next day I did something that felt unnatural. I set a boundary. When Emily called, I told her, "I love you, but I can't be your only source of strength. You need to find ways to handle this on your own. Silence. Then, a sigh of disappointment. I expected guilt to wash over me, but instead I felt something else. Relief. With Michael it was harder. When he asked for money again, I said no. Not because I didn't care, but because I realized he would never stand on his own if I kept being his crutch. He was upset, of course, but something surprising happened. He figured it out. That was when I understood. By constantly carrying their burdens, I had stolen their chance to grow strong enough to carry them themselves. I still love my children with every part of me, but now, I also love myself. I take walks without checking my phone. I spend time with old friends. I read books for pleasure, not for distraction, and I no longer feel guilty for protecting my own peace. So, to those of you listening, have you ever felt like you're carrying more than your share? Have you lost yourself in the struggles of others? Tell me, when was the last time you put down the basket? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. 7. The weight of the past. Be a guide, not a burden. Lao Tzu once said, "If you try to change it, you will ruin it. Try to hold it, and you will lose it." There's an old parable about a fisherman who spent his life perfecting the art of catching fish. When his son came of age, the father forbade him from fishing in any way other than his own. But times changed, and the son found new, better methods. When the father saw his way being left behind, he grew resentful, refusing to accept the new ways. In clinging to the past, he lost both his legacy and his relationship with his son. Wisdom is not imposing the past, it is teaching how to adapt. I grew up in a time when hard work meant everything. My father worked his hands to the bone, and I did the same. I believed in loyalty, to a job, to a routine, to the lessons that had been passed down to me. When my son Daniel was born, I swore I'd teach him the same values. Life is hard, I told him when he was young. If you don't fight for every inch, the world will leave you behind. So, I did what I thought was right. I pushed him. When he wanted to pursue art instead of taking over the family business, I discouraged him. Art won't feed you, I said. A real job will. He studied finance instead, not because he wanted to, but because I made him believe that following my footsteps was the only way to survive. He worked hard, just like I taught him. Found a job that paid well, started a life that, on the outside, looked like success. But then, one evening he sat across from me, hands folded, voice steady. "Dad," he said, "I'm leaving my job." I felt my stomach drop. "Leaving? What do you mean, leaving?" "I hate it," he admitted. "Every day I feel like I'm living someone else's life. I want to teach art. It's what I've always wanted." I clenched my jaw, trying to make sense of it. I had spent years teaching him how to be responsible, how to survive, and now he wanted to throw it all away? "Do you know how hard I worked so you wouldn't have to struggle?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. He sighed, looking at me with something like sadness but not surprise. "Dad, you think you were protecting me, but you weren't. You were making me live your life instead of my own." His words hit me harder than I expected. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing something painful. I had spent my life trying to keep him from making mistakes, but in doing so, I had never truly let him live. The next day I did something that felt foreign to me. I told him, "I may not understand your choices, but I trust you to make them." It was the first time I had ever given him permission to be his own man. Daniel became a teacher. He wasn't rich, but he was happy. And watching him thrive in a life he built for himself, I understood something my father never did. Our past should be a guide, not a chain. So tell me, have you ever struggled to let someone carve their own path? Have you ever felt the weight of another's expectations on your shoulders? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your wisdom. 8. Control over your life. Be the master of your own decisions. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In ancient Greece, there was a wise elder who lived alone, tending to his own land despite his age. His children, believing they knew best, insisted he move in with them, where they could make decisions for him. But he refused, saying, "A ship may be old, but as long as its captain steers, it still has purpose." Surrendering control too soon does not bring peace, it brings helplessness. To live with dignity, one must keep hold of the wheel, no matter how rough the waters become. I have always made my own choices, good ones, bad ones, some I regret, others I cherish. But they were mine. I lived my life with my own two hands, making decisions that shaped the years behind me. But lately, I've noticed something. The world looks at me differently. Not as James, a man with thoughts and opinions, but as Dad or Grandpa, someone to be handled, someone whose decisions should be made by others. It started small. My daughter, Claire, stopped asking where I wanted to eat and started deciding for me. "You wouldn't like that place, Dad," she'd say. My son David took it further. "Dad, let me manage your bills. It's too much for you now." I didn't argue. I knew they meant well. Then came the day they sat me down, their faces tense. "Dad," Claire began, "we think it's time for you to move in with one of us. The house is too big and we worry about you." I looked around at the home I built with my late wife, the chair where I read my morning paper, the garden where I spent quiet afternoons. They saw inconvenience. I saw a lifetime. "I'm fine here," I said. "Dad," David sighed, "it's not safe. We've already looked at some places for you." That's when I felt it, that creeping sense of being pushed aside. They had already decided. I was just meant to agree. So I did something they didn't expect. I said no. Not in anger, not in defiance, but in quiet certainty. "This is my home," I told them, "and while I can still stand, still think, still decide, I will decide for myself." They protested, told me it was for my own good, but I held firm. The first few weeks were tense. They called constantly, expecting me to change my mind, but with time, they saw. I still woke up every morning, made my own breakfast, paid my own bills, lived my life on my own terms. They had thought age meant surrender, but I showed them age meant experience, not helplessness. Ow! I ask you, have you ever felt someone trying to take the reins from your hands? Have you ever been told what's best for you without being asked what you wanted? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your wisdom. Retirement is more than just a time to rest. It's an opportunity to redefine your role, protect your independence, and guide your children without losing yourself. By being mindful of what you give and what you hold on to, you create a life of balance, dignity, and purpose. Your children will grow stronger when they learn to stand on their own, and you will find greater peace when you stay in control of your own choices. The wisdom of age is not just in what we know, but in how we use that knowledge, not to control, but to inspire. So what are your thoughts? Have you ever felt the pressure to give too much? Have you had to reclaim your independence after realizing you had given away too much of yourself? We'd love to hear your experiences. Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue this conversation together. And if you found these insights valuable, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more reflections on personal and spiritual growth. Your support helps bring wisdom to those who need it most. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care of yourself and your peace of mind.